Question number 10, the Honourable Ruth Dyson. Number 10.
My question is to the Minister of Education. What further advice, if any, did she receive that led to her decision to consult on the closing of Redcliffs School, following the advice she received from geotechnical experts in September last year that, quote, with the mitigation measures in place, the risk from rockfall is considered to be no higher on the school grounds than on any site remote from the Port Hills, close quote.
Honourable Hikia-Parata.
Mr Speaker, I have made no decision. I have initiated consultation on a proposal. My proposal is based on all the reports I have received. Families want assurances of safety and certainty, not just now, but into the future. While the modelling and risk mitigations propose measures of safety, they also predict further rockfalls from the cliff's ongoing degradation. Periodic removal of the students may be required to ensure that the school grounds remain safe. I am concerned families cannot be given assurance that this will be a safe school site over time.
Supplementary question, the Honourable Ruth Dyson.
Point of order, Mr Speaker.
Point of order, the Honourable Ruth Dyson.
I take offence at the interjection from Minister Brownlee and ask that you require him to withdraw and apologise.
Order. The member has taken offence. I ask the Honourable Jerry Brownlee to withdraw that remark.
For the offence, I withdraw the remark. But it is reckless.
Order. No. That's where we get into trouble, Mr Brownlee. If I ask a member, if I ask any member to withdraw, they do so without any further comment. Honourable supplementary question, the Honourable Ruth Dyson.
Why has she cited safety and uncertainty as the primary driver of her proposal to close Redcliffs School when the MWH, Becker and GNS reports all say that a simple and cost-effective bund at the back of the school property would provide a level of safety that is significantly greater than what is required to live in the surrounding houses?
Honourable Hikia-Parata.
Mr Speaker, I cited safety over time, and in the primary response to the question I indicated that while the engineers have certainly said that they could make mitigations to make the school site safe, they have also said that there will be further rockfalls, that periodically the bund may not be able to maintain the capacity it has and will need to be repaired, and during those reassessments it is likely that the students will need to be removed from the school site.
Supplementary question, the Honourable Ruth Dyson.
What specialist advice, if any, did she receive which led her to say that reassessment, clearing and repairing the bund, if damaged, in possible future cliff collapse, could take 2 years?
Honourable Hikia-Parata.
Mr Speaker, what led me to say that was reading the reports that have been provided. What led me to say that the need for this consultation to occur is because of my ongoing concern for the safety of students on that site and for undisrupted provision of good quality education, not only now but into the future. And may I repeat, Mr Speaker, I have made no decision. I have initiated consultation on a proposal.
That's right. Mr Speaker.
Point of order, the Honourable Ruth Dyson.
My last supplementary was very specific. What specialist advice did she receive?
No,
and that question, was...
It was not. The question was what specific advice, if any, led the Minister to say. And the Minister obviously just moved to the second part and told the House what led her to say the comments that the member quoted in her question. Supplementary question, the Honourable Ruth Dyson.
What advice has she got for the thousands of Sumner, Clifton and Redcliffs residents who drive along the main road every day, who are at greater risk from potential rockfall than the pupils and staff of Redcliffs School if they went home?
Honourable Hikia-Parata. Order. Honourable Hikia-Parata.
Mr Speaker, the advice that I have taken into account relates to the school grounds, and as Minister of Education, that is my primary responsibility, and that is the one that I am discharging.
Supplementary question, the Honourable Ruth Dyson.
If the Redcliffs community demonstrates through the consultation period overwhelming support for their school to come home, will she support that school returning?
Honourable Hikia Parata.
Mr. Speaker, the consultation period provides not only for the specific Redcliffs School community, but anyone else to make a submission. And I will consider every submission that is put forward to me during that process.
Question, order. Question number 11, Jan Logie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.